Hello, I'm your host Matthew. We're joined here today by Her Excellency Nouf Al-Bushlaibi, Executive Director of the Strategic Marketing and Communications Sector at the Department of Culture and Tourism, Abu Dhabi. Hello and welcome to the show, Nouf.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Cannot wait for this conversation.
Exciting.
So Nouf, you've said that one of your missions is to share Abu Dhabi with the world. What drove that?
Wow. Big question. What drove that? Doesn't come just from one person, right? It comes from a country's ambition, from a capital's, leadership. Growing up, I've had the pleasure of traveling very early on, seeing different parts of the world. And all the while, Abu Dhabi was going through its development phase, right? And when you go and you see how different parts, like for example, I used to go to Orlando and I'd get exposed to the entertainment and leisure elements of the theme parks. I'd go to London and I saw, the museums, the performing arts. And at the time, being a young girl, that still wasn't something that was readily available in Abu Dhabi, but we had very strongly, when people came here, they met with the people, they saw the culture. But over the years, Abu Dhabi's progressed so far and has such a strategic vision of what it wants to offer the people, whether you're coming to live here or to visit, right? And it's through, from a very young age, I've always said, I want to be in a place where I can give back to Abu Dhabi for everything that it's done for me. And I don't know where this intrinsic, let's say, feeling came from, but I can tell you, being at a very young age exposed, watching my father when he was serving the military and how his mission and how he was dedicated to Abu Dhabi and the leadership. And I said, I want to be exactly like my dad. I want to be able at some point in my life give back. And so watching Abu Dhabi from 1999 and even 1992, over the years to come to where it is today, we are not doing it justice if we're not sharing it with everyone in the world, right? Everyone tells me, how can you explain Abu Dhabi? What makes it different? I said, if I look back just at my journey, when was I exposed to a classroom or a setting or a gathering where there were people from all different parts of the world bringing different perspectives? It wasn't until I went to university in the States that I was in a classroom where I met someone from Hong Kong, or I met someone from China, or from the UK. Or today our kids are really blessed and spoiled that way, in the sense Abu Dhabi has created this place where anyone can come and call it its home. And it's the melting pot that I learned about when I was studying that has now come to fruition here in Abu Dhabi. But at the same time, the whole city as a proposition has evolved. But over the years, people don't really know what Abu Dhabi is and what is the beauty of the city and what it offers people. And so over my career, the different places I went to work in, the different experiences I was exposed to, and if I was actually to touch on one specific, let's say, period of time, and that was when I started working in Yas Island at Miral, seeing how the destination was coming alive, how we put customers at the heart of everything we do. I said, wow, that was such a nice opportunity for us to focus on a concentrated effort there. How can I bring that to Abu Dhabi? Where and how can I bring that influence that we can share Abu Dhabi with the world and tell people, listen, actually Abu Dhabi, of all the destinations that I've been to, has everything that a particular traveler wants to experience, but we don't impose it on you. We let you be you, and you can choose what you want to do, but at your own time and at your own pace. Right?
I was just going to say that, at your own pace, right? That's exactly what it is. And so you talk about your dad there, you talk about traveling as a kid. What was the experience like growing up in Abu Dhabi? And how do you think that's maybe changed for, in comparison with your kids today?
Wow. When I look back when I was a kid, I think one of the things that, for, anyone that comes from anywhere from the world, you want to know your values, you want to be grounded to your roots. And Abu Dhabi, from a very young and from the start, always was grounded in ensuring that we know who we are and what we stand for. But from a very young and very early stages, and we look at our leader, the founding father, Sheikh Zayed, he had a vision. He knew where he wanted to go, but he always wanted to make sure we knew who we were and what we wanted to stand for as the people of the UAE. And when you look at where, at that very young age, I knew that Abu Dhabi could be the place where the opportunities are all there, but it was always up to you and what you wanted to do and how you wanted to cater to your, what your dreams were and what you wanted to go after. So if there is one thing I tell you that is still the same from when I was a kid until what my kids have today, is that Abu Dhabi has always been true to say, anything you dream of, you can make happen, but you've got to work for it. You've got to go after it, right? Is it the same city? No, it's completely changed and transformed, but the essence of who Abu Dhabi is and the people of Abu Dhabi is there. But when you look at the opportunities today for our children and what they can even go further, the different industries that have opened up over time, whether it's hospitality and aerospace, from real estate, and the list goes on, right? And it's been an honor to watch the city develop and progress in that sense, right? All these opportunities even brought closer to the people of the country and to the people of the UAE.
And you mentioned studying abroad. So I think you studied in 2 universities internationally, right?
Yeah.
And you've talked about bringing some of your experiences back from different countries as well to your role today. How did that time abroad studying, how did that influence your career?
Well, I'd have to go a little bit before that, because if you were to know a little bit about myself, actually, I've considered myself very much an international person, because I spent the first 8 years of my life in the UK. Then I came back to Abu Dhabi and spent the majority of my high school and my growing up phase here, and then went abroad. And at every stage of my life, I took something that helped shape my approach and how I look at things differently, right? But I think if there's one thing I've loved and appreciated about my university years, is being exposed to different cultures, different opinions, thinking outside of the box, knowing no boundaries. That's really shaped the way I think and approach about things when I was in my university years. When I talk about this, and I'll tell you a specific favorite project of mine that I got to work on, which was the Abrahamic Family House. And when you'll be like, but what's the connection? So growing up through my childhood and my adult years, being exposed to different cultures, different religions, different people, I started to very early on see some commonalities, but appreciated as well what made everyone unique. And I didn't know if I had the platform or would I be able to speak about these things, growing up, and would my friends think I'm really, really mad to think about, there's commonalities between people or not in the religions. When Abrahamic Family House came as a project, and it's being in Abu Dhabi meant so much to me as an individual. And I felt almost like it gave me the platform to sit and talk and have these conversations that I would have had abroad in Abu Dhabi, but also come and share this insight, bringing people closer. And I couldn't feel more proud that it's here.
I mean, it's a beautiful initiative. Yeah. What was your role in that project?
It was very interesting. When I saw, actually, if I took even one step a little bit before, when the Pope came to visit Abu Dhabi, I remember watching that moment in history and time. It was the Pope and Sheikh Al-Azhar that came to visit. And I said, wow, I would have loved to have been a part of that moment. And I didn't know at that time the power of manifesting and what that meant, right? And fast forward 3 months later, the opportunity came to me saying, no, there's a media outlet that found out about the Abrahamic Family House and they want to launch it and talk about it. Well, and we still haven't really revealed the project. And said, what should we do? And I said, you know what? This is the most this is a project that is so aligned with who we are, and it is not just for Abu Dhabi, but it's a gift to the world. We've got to do it justice, and we've got to do it right. And I think it was just that one time of that conversation that I had with my boss, and he said, "Would you like to work on this?" And I said, "It would be my dream," And it was just like the stars aligning. Everything I went through in my life as a person, this was the project that I wanted to work in. And because of what it stood for and its essence is just bringing people together, getting them to talk, to understand one another more, see what brings us closer and appreciate our differences. And it was just a match made in heaven for me. And so I found myself quite interestingly doing my day job at that time, which was, and at night, this was the project that I would, just go and dream. And, I just delved into it. I remember when I was working with certain partners and they're like, "But you're working on entertainment. What are you doing working on a project that, that talks about different religions?" And I said, "But that's the beauty of, you should never limit yourself by what your title is. As long as you have this ambition and desire to learn and work and, just grow." And it was a completely different area. And I just spent nights on end, reading and understanding. And through it, I discovered things in parts of, the UAE, the region and the world, I wouldn't have never have had the opportunity to learn about,
And there's this commonality coming through, which is sharing these things with the world, not keeping them in Abu Dhabi, but inviting everyone in, which is a really nice sentiment. Can you tell us a little bit more about your career at Miral?
Hi, Miral, it's an interesting point because I remember right before I joined Miral, I was working for the water and electricity regulator. And I was at the point I had completed 5 years and I was looking for the next big challenge for myself, right? And I remember speaking to a friend and I'm like, what's out there, something different, unique? She's like, "No, if I know about this company called Miral, how about you come and, see what it's about?" And I tried to look for it online, couldn't see anything. And then even drove my curiosity even more to find out more about it, right? And I remember when I went in for my first interview with the CEO, which is Hamad Zaabi. And I remember walking out and I said, "Oh my God, my whole life I've been prepared for this job." Because growing up, I used to go to the States and I would spend every summer in Orlando, Florida. And the reason was I come from a family of 5 siblings. I had an elder sister who was a special needs child. And she loved Disney, loved Orlando. And my family, that's it, dedicated the entire family's vacation to, going to Orlando, doing the things that she loved. And growing up, we never got enough of it. It's not like you think, 1-2 years, you're done. But all through the while, my father, took this role to give me the mission of planning our holidays. And I was, Orlando, wow. Every year I'd go and I'd, map out how would I, go through the theme parks and I was observing and taking in everything around me, whether it was from the hospitality, from the experience, how they took care of customer complaints and, how they designed the experience and the storytelling of it. And so here I came to Miral where they had the theme parks, they were designing experiences, and I was like, oh my God. And, growing up, I was like, I wish we had something like this in the UAE. I remember reaching a point when I graduated, almost wanting to live in Orlando, and my parents were like, "How do we get her to come back?" And so when Miral came on the table, I was like, that's it. This is the place. And I launched myself full on, taking in everything. And I have to say, I had really amazing leaders that gave me the platform and the opportunity not to also, and I mentioned earlier, not to be limited by your job description. Yeah. I went in as a senior corporate communications manager, and that role gave me exposure to all the projects. And I suddenly started looking at, how they designed the theme parks, Or it's not only theme parks, because it's also experiences. What was the consideration that went in there? And I remember telling Zahabi, I was like, you know what I bring to the table is very different than everyone else. And he said, what is that, Nouf? I said, you hire experts that bring the academic learnings of how to build theme parks and experiences. I bring to you 15 years of the customer aspect, the customer lens of these experiences. And it was such an amazing journey of going through, seeing something, whether it's on paper, to becoming a reality. And then also how do you see it continue to thrive and grow and progress. So I spent 5 years in Miran appreciating and learning how we work with IPs. How do you co-create experiences that were true to both parts of the table? And what I mean is that you had an IP, for example, like Warner Brothers, very strong, well-established, and you had Yas Island Abu Dhabi that had its also identity and its values. And how do you bring those two and create something that is true to both partners, but also unique to the UAE? And so the next 5 years were amazing in the sense I started to delve. Yes, I had this personal experience, but then I wanted to also gain the academic experience and understand what it took to build a destination. How do you approach destination strategies? What were the key elements of, making it a success? And I noticed that was like an area that not a lot of people knew about, but we were also fortunate enough to be learning and progressing and had the world at our fingertips to learn from. And so I spent the next 2 years learning about destination management organizations and how they're set up. And quickly you come to learn that every city had a very different setup, but in essence, the ingredients are similar, but they had to do something that fit the ecosystem of that city to make it thrive. What I loved most about going into Miran, and that was the beginning of me coming under my leadership wing, is that yes, learn from the experts, but we need to be daring enough to innovate our way forward. Yeah. And so it was such an amazing environment that was set up that do not be afraid to to do something different. You don't always have to do what everyone else is doing. Yes, you could take a model out of Singapore or out of Orlando or Australia that have done such an amazing job in establishing destinations, but don't be afraid to challenge that model. And that's a mindset that is not, you hear about everyone speak of, but not everyone is willing to take that risk.
It's not put into practice,
yes.
Right?
And so I found myself really, it's just that excitement of what the challenges and, taking that leap of faith, experimenting, trial and error, but learning as you go along in Miran. And that's where I really found myself almost like in an incubator, developing and building my knowledge around destination management and destination strategies and marketing.
And that's the beauty about this moment in time in Abu Dhabi, right? Because there are not many places in the world where over this space of 10, 15 years, you can really shape what the visitor experience is going to look like for the next 20, 30, 50 years ahead. And it's really interesting for you to say that you were analysing visitor experience when you were in Orlando on a family holiday. So if you move from Morale into DCT, how has your role developed between those two positions?
Yes. Well, after 5 years of being at Miral and, the team, our role was very, I'd have to say, multifaceted there, right? Where we worked with strategy, we worked with the destination, we worked with the theme parks. And so it reached a point where I've really done all that I could for Miran, but with all that learning, I felt this need that I wanted to take it up to Abu Dhabi. And I was very blessed to have a leader that, could see that potential and hunger and give me the opportunity. And at the time, DCT was going through its own transformation. the tourism strategy was refreshed, and they were really looking to accelerate how we, put Abu Dhabi on the map. And really, it was at a critical time where we needed to unlock that layer for Abu Dhabi. And so I was brought into DCT with the mission of how do we reinvent the way we do marketing. It was interesting because while I was in Miran, I wasn't just doing marketing. I was doing marketing. I was looking into the events, the consumer insights. And so it was great having that 360, visibility into destination. So I came here into DCT with a clear focus on marketing communications. And when I was brought in as well, it wasn't just on tourism though. It was looking at the entire 360 ecosystem. And what I mean by that, DCT is quite unique in that sense, where you have tourism and culture under one umbrella. When you look at all other destinations around the world, they have a separate tourism authority and a separate culture authority. And I think it's, again, quite innovative of our leaders where they said, no, let's bring those two together because they realize the impact and the influence of the two ecosystems on each other. And so the mission was clear, but how do we achieve the objectives that we have set required in itself an innovative approach as well. And so I went out and I reached out to the people that I've come to work with throughout the year and said, come with me and let's take on this challenge. How do we do this? How do we break the boundaries of how we market and take a destination to the world, but at the same time, really be grounded and genuine to who we are, right? And when I think and I have to correct, I believe I had a leader that really was, he in himself is daring in nature and willing to take on and break, the norm. And so I came to him and I said, boss, how about we go about the approach of creating an in-house marketing agency? Because for us to be able to achieve the agility and be able to develop things that are quite cutting edge. Yeah. Our partners are always there, but you want to also build that engine in-house. And I went on. We were, for any normal case analysis, you'd have 3 months to create your first initial perspective. And if His Excellency Mohammed al-Mubarak, time is not, he likes to break every single boundary. I told him I need 100 days. He said, no, you've got 30 days. And I said, challenge accepted. The challenges, I always like accepting challenges. And we went on a 30-day mission where we did our observations, analysis, and we came forward with a solution. And the rest is history. I stand today, I can't believe to say 3 years from the day that I've joined DCT. And I couldn't be more proud of the team that I've developed in-house. They're passionate marketeers who love Abu Dhabi and are as excited as I am to share it with the world. And just year on year, you can see the hunger and the challenge in them wanting to do better and taking the learnings of what we've done and how do we take that into the way we move forward. It's been such a rewarding experience so far, and we're just getting started.
I love that. And it goes back to that incubator model that you mentioned earlier, right? And it's we talk about this quite a lot. Nation builders are not slowing down for anyone. Yeah. How do you, with your team, how do you keep that passion, that focus, that energy, that drive in this environment where you're also creating safety around innovation and failure and testing? Because it's a really challenging balance to find.
I wish I could tell you I have a formula that's easy, right? And it's not. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of dedication, and as a leader, we always often hear it, right? You have to lead by example. You really need to take a lot of weight onto that. You really have to mimic the attitude, the motivation, the passion that you want to see reflected in your team, but giving them also the space when we say you learn by falling and failing. you really need to be true to that, as in you need to give them that space to fall, but then how do you quickly help them get back up, take that learning, move forward and keep progressing, taking the wins, accepting the failures and moving forward. If I look at my team, and I think one thing that I've done, and I'm always, yes, I've achieved it, but I'm always looking at always ways of how do I improve it, is this sense of family, of one unit, one team. And that comes from, giving the team chances to come and interact with the leadership, having discussions, opening opportunities for them to come and debate things with you. We have these monthly gatherings that I host once a month, where I bring everyone and we're looking at, reflecting on how we've, succeeded in the past month, setting what the direction is for the next month and what the focus is. But it's more of also an opportunity for them to discuss, debate, ask questions. And believe it or not, I sit in that meeting it's not a meeting, it's a gathering. And every gathering I sit there, and if I don't hear someone asking questions, I'll probe my team and be like, you need to ask me questions. Come on, let's talk about things. Because I think being a leader and in a very fast moving pace environment, we forget the value of giving teams to talk and interact with us. And that's crucial for every leader, to make sure that they make that time to build this next generation, to make them feel that they are a part of it, that they're growing with you. They've got to have the time, the face time to sit, talk, and they're not always going to get it right, and neither are we. But having these conversations, giving them a platform to talk, debate, give and take and learn is so important. Making them feel heard, giving them the opportunity to trial things. And I think it's when I sit and reflect a lot on my journey as an individual, a lot of my who I am today, what I do with my team comes from watching my father and how he used to work with his team and how he would bring them and gather with them, give them a chance, listen to them, but, roll up his sleeves and also do the work with them. And so I take a lot of that and I bring it here to my team. Like, I can't tell you, I have over 60 amazing professionals that work for me, and I know every single one of them by name. I know where they are, who they are, where they're from. We celebrate their birthdays. We celebrate, their anniversaries. We celebrate their wins. We discuss where they went. What are the things that we need to improve on. But they know that Nouf is our leader, but Nouf is someone that I can also go and open the door and have a cup of coffee and discuss anything that they can come to their mind. And I can't stress the importance of leaders really making sure that they're accessible to their teams. It's something I really carry close and to my heart, honestly. Yeah. A lot of what I've learned as a leader is from my dad. And he used to work 2 jobs. He was in the military. Funny enough, yesterday we were in the shoot with Steve Harvey in Isser Hotel. And Isser before that was called the Officers Club. And my dad, in his spare time, was heading recreation. That's not something you do in your spare time. But my dad, from a very young age, got us, his kids, involved. And trust me, we didn't get any perks being the kids of the head of recreation. He worked us. And we didn't feel like he was working us. We felt like, wow, we get to be a part of something with him, right? And he was hosting the first Ramadan tournament. His kids was me, my brother Abdullah, Fatma, my sister. We were running, organizing the trophies, getting the shirts for all the players ready. He'd send us and he'd be like, oh, you need to go and get the cones all into order. He had the staff to do it, but he had such pride of us being a part of it with him. And we felt like, yes, we get to make something, and, be a part of getting people excited and putting an amazing event together, and I just go back and I reflect on it and I'm like, wow, how did my dad do that? The employees at the time, they knew he was doing it as a part-time job. And, being an employee, if you didn't know if that person was actually part of the organization, you might not necessarily have given him the time of day. But what he created, the sense of team spirit, and he did it very simple, just by giving everyone a chance to talk, giving them a voice, listening. Not a lot of leaders are, we forget that as we move up the ladder of the corporate world. Actually, listening is as important as to giving directions and talking. And it was just, fascinating. Like, again, as I'm going through my career, I just came from a summer holiday, as you know, and I do a lot of reflection. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I start to connect the dots and see the patterns of what I learned watching my father, and then how I'm bringing it into my day-to-day job. And there's even moments of my mother as well that I'll tell you, both my parents have inspired me in ways. Like, if I talk to you about my mom was, when we first moved to the UAE, because my mother's from Bahrain, she came and she started working for a haute couture. How did she come? One of her friends saw she had, some really great style, and said, Salama, would you come and head my haute couture? And she's like, sure. And obviously as a kid I wasn't, but now as an adult, I'm like, Mom, how did she do that? Like, she went in not knowing anything about the haute couture world. She just had a good sense of style, but she went and delved into learning what it meant to have cutters and what made an amazing cutter. When I say cutters, how do you cut the material? The bead workers. She went and she studied the beadwork. She went and she met the designers and understood the process of design. That was one part of her career. Then she went to another part where she was the office manager of Ministry of Interior, the head of Ministry. And she was looking into cases, and then she developed this, passion for criminal investigation and started, reading. I'm like, how do you go from one, speciality to another? And she said, Mama, reading is important and key. If you have that, passion to learn, you've got to know that through reading and discussing and learning from others, there's no limit to what you could do.
The power of curiosity, right?
Yes.
If we focus on Experience Abu Dhabi for a moment, a lot has changed in the tourism landscape over the last 5 years. How are the changes in traveller behaviour, first of all, influencing your plans for the next decade, 5 years?
Well, I'll take us back to a time where I don't know if anyone really wants to talk about, but at the same time, it's been the moment, where everything in the world has changed, which is COVID, right? And I think when we think back to COVID, yes, a lot of memories are triggered by it, but there's a lot of things that came out that were positive, and it really completely changed the way the tourism industry operated, and also as we have come out of it, not as we come out of it. And I think if I look at what tourism was before and after, when we looked at whether it was booking periods, how they've also shortened and people are more willing to travel, but more importantly is the kind of experiences people are looking for, right? And I think we can all agree, coming out of COVID, travelers from all over the world and people wanted to find a place where they can connect, a place that was genuine, more authentic. And we saw that coming through many of the research and the reports of what customers are looking for. And so when we're looking forward towards the tourism industry, and everyone, when we came out of COVID, thought it was going to be a travel boom, but what has come out is more of a really steady uprise in tourism and the need for travel to experience other cultures, explore different parts of the world. And when we look at Experience Abu Dhabi and Abu Dhabi as a city, we were very well primed and positioned for the traveler who was seeking that kind of genuine and authentic proposition. And it was actually quite prime time, because even and that was right around the time actually when I joined DCT, which was back in August 2021. Everyone was gearing up to relaunch their destinations and what we want to do. And it was at that time that we went into our brand strategy rephrase, or let's say reapproach to how we take Abu Dhabi to the world. And it wasn't, and you know, as you hear me say that travelers were looking for something more authentic and genuine, it wasn't that we did it intentionally for these travelers. It was very true that we had a project that was very genuine, authentic, very grounded, and the destination was truly a place for people to reconnect. And here we had such an amazing alignment for what the traveler was looking for. And so it was, you could say, the prime time and moment for Abu Dhabi to shine and be that place for everyone. When we're looking at tourism for the next couple of years, the region in itself has completely also changed and repositioned itself in the tourism world. And it's, whether you're looking at Saudi Arabia, you're looking at Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, and the UAE between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, the entire region is a completely different proposition, has opened up. And when you look at the statistics of how the tourism progress has come in the Middle East and compared to the rest of the world, we've really come ahead because of that genuine and authentic and very different experience that we're offering and propositioning. When it comes to Abu Dhabi, we've always had a very rigorous and clear 5-year strategy for how we want to go about, tourism and how we want to set ourselves apart. And I think that making sure that we always had that sense of distinction is what has really set us clearly ahead of our competitors as well. It's not beyond me that, we're still in a development phase, but even with that development phase, the product and what we offer is quite distinct, in that the UAE and Abu Dhabi distinguishment is its culture and its heritage. But then when you look at the product of what we developed, whether it's from things that excite you, from the entertainment and the theme park realm, things that, inspire you, whether it's from the cultural realm, from experiencing the Abu Dhabi culture or the museums that we have and what's come up as well. And then things that restore you from a wellness standpoint and the beaches and all of that. So it's really the ideal destination for people who are coming out and who have completely shifted their reason to travel, and where Abu Dhabi comes to give that perfect alignment for everyone.
I think that's actually covered about pretty much everything in that section. I wanna just stop and make sure that we do cover everything, because I know this will be super important to your team as well. Go on.
Talk about specific experiential experiences for travelers. So if you want to get into like the culinary aspect, the wellness seekers, sports, this is stuff that your team has kind of packed. Move that over specific.
No. I think when, if I take a step back a little bit, when we were going about our brand strategy, for any destination to set itself apart, you really need to find that point of distinction. And it was such a challenging process that we went through till we were able to define the 3 pillars of our destination and 3 pillars of products that we have. And what I love about that is that the experiences, whether the travelers are looking for, if they're a sport enthusiast, it goes on from, whether it's you're a basketball enthusiast or you're a UFC fan. When the team goes about creating the products, they really think of what the traveler, or let's say even the resident, are looking for, and how do we cater to them? How do we listen to them? And And everything's been very diligently, handpicked, curated, the experience to make sure that we are catering to the needs of our travelers and who we're going after. When you look at, let's say, the culinary landscape, and that's something that I would say we're very well known for, whether it's the spices and the different flavors that you can experience in Abu Dhabi. But we also take it to a different level where you see all the multi-cuisines that we have to offer. You come and the UAE and Abu Dhabi culinary scene, and whether it's having a ghuzi that's been prepared by one of the Emirati chefs, the flavors that go through as you're tasting it is just into a whole different sphere. But then if you wanted a little bit of Italian food, whether you wanted a bit of Chinese or Indian, it's quite an interesting and diversified culinary landscape for our visitors to experience. We're not, and someone would say, well, is that it? Is this all that Abu Dhabi is going to offer? We're actually continuously in this loop of cycle and feedback from our customers, where we listen to what our travelers say. What did you like? What did you not? What are you looking forward to next? And we've got amazing teams that are continuously looking at how do we improve the visitor experience? How do we continuously to bring things that customers are looking for, right? I still remember when we launched the first Broadway show on Yas Island, which was The Lion King. And there was a lot of, I would say, as much as there was excitement, there was skepticism. Would this really resonate? Would people really love it? And after 6 weeks, actually, it was the best-selling show in the history of Abu Dhabi.
Oh, wow.
And since then, we're seeing a lineup of Broadway shows come in, whether it was from Matilda that you saw in June, Chicago that's coming up this month, Life of Pi, and of course I won't tell you what else is coming up. But,
I was going to
ask.
But
I can tell you, the team, the events bureau and the Yas Island Miral events team are doing a phenomenal job on, just building and designing that lineup of events. Again, it just takes you back to think of how Abu Dhabi has really gone so far and progressed. And might say, but wait a minute, is it just for the sake of bringing events? But it's not. And if I go back to the conversation, I said, well, Abu Dhabi has brought all these amazing opportunities to you closer. So when you look at these performing, arts, the Broadway shows, or whether it's the concerts, there's actually a whole focus on building a performing arts industry, right? Whether it's, you see them in the schools, right? The drama curriculums that are coming through. The schools now are putting on plays. So there's a lot of tie-in to what you see from a project, but also building on the industry within the city. And this is really where you can say, no, but how does marketing play into this, right? And they're all interconnected. And how do you show the world of what's here, but also building a long-term sustainability plan of building all these different industries within the country?
It's really interesting that building the grassroots at the same time as the product, because you've got this grassroots that is going to develop into the future product in 10, 15 years. So on that, your point around the experience and what people are looking for today, are there any themes over the next couple of years that you're expecting travelers to really be focused on?
From what we're seeing, and I think, and I know I mentioned that Abu Dhabi is quite well primed for different kind of travelers. But what we're seeing very much are people who are more of the cultural, cultural enthusiasts who want to discover different cultures of the world. Wellness will be on the top of that trends. So we do see a lot of that coming through. And I think when you consider what's coming up as well from the destination standpoint, and that brings us, to Saadiyat Culture District and what it's meant to bring and how it's going to really change the landscape of the city from a cultural standpoint is quite phenomenal. But we see a lot of the trends on the culture enthusiasts and the wellness travelers coming through a lot. And I won't say any more than that.
I want to probe, but I know you can't give the game away.
Yeah.
So you talk about Sadia Cultural District there. Something close to our heart as an agency. We've been fortunate to support DCT and its other partners. Could you tell us a little bit about that campaign? Because I think everyone has seen it. It was a phenomenal campaign. And what's the story behind that?
Hi. So Sadia Culture District is not a new project. It's been in the making for the last 10 to 15 years. So if I take you back, actually, the first time the district was revealed was 2007. And it takes time to build such institutions. And last December was a key milestone and moment for us, as in we're coming 2 years close to the completion of this district. And it was time to reignite the curiosity and grab the attention of the world and let them know that it's coming. You'd say, no, 2 years, and I'd say 2 years is a lot, shorter of a time that we used to know, right? And it can go quite fast in the blink of an eye. But we were faced with this challenge where how do you refocus and show the world of what's really happening here? Over the years, we've spoken about the different institutions coming, but we never really spoke about what that entire journey. Why have we intentionally curated these institutions in one vicinity, within one island, one destination? And so, as marketeers, we had a challenge. How do we talk about something that's not completely built, but how do we show and create this sense of appreciation, but at the same time, how do I get people to be a part of it? And so my team being, the daredevils that they are and thinking outside of the box, were given this challenge. And I think one thing that we started going around on these discovery interviews, interviewing the chairman, His Excellency Mohammed Mubarak, interviewing all the different, whether it was architects or artists or, the curators, and listening to, the excitement, that spark that came into their eye. And one thing that was really common that came, and it was a thread through, it was really a place that when you came to it, you're not going to leave the same person. As in, you're going to get inspired by something. You're going to leave wanting to understand something more or want to discover or learn something. You might leave wanting to become, pick up something new, open up a new, take on a new, talent. Or, but how could we take that spark in the eyes of those people that spoke and really show the passion behind developing this district? And that's where I have to say I give credit to my team and the partners and them really embracing that passion and came up with this concept where this brilliant artist had developed this, technology of, placing this headband on a person's head and then translating those emotions into a piece of art. And I will tell you, when we took the concept to the table and people are like, what? How? What do you mean? And why are you doing, what is this piece of art? And how? I said, but you've got to see the alignment here, right? Like Saadiyat culture is a piece of art, and it is through art that we get to express our emotions and our ideas, but also where you plant a seed of curiosity to, you never know where that leads to. And coming back to the DNA of who we are as an organization and our leaders, we took that leap of faith and said, let's do it. We've got to do something that is quite unconventional, true to who we are and what we're trying to, portray out there, but also something that would help us stand out through all the clutter. And that is every marketeer's challenge today. And I'll tell you, it's been quite a journey even for me on a personal level. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but when we laid out the foundation of the campaign, we got the creative concept locked, but then it came to the voices that we were going to go. One thing that Saadiyat Culture District and even every institution, as the curational team was designing, is that they wanted to reflect the DNA of the country and the city into the institution. And what I mean by that, it's the diversity.
Yeah.
It's showing the people, the unrepresented, but also showing the balance between, so that everyone that came there felt that they could relate to connect with. And so we started to map out the different voices and handpicked the different people that would come and be a part of the campaign, but knowing that they would come and share a piece of themselves through it, and how excited they would be to see this place. And also here came the challenge of, it wasn't a scripted dialogue. So that also created a lot of nervousness for the team. I said, what do you mean? As marketeers, we have a script and we have to stick by it.
Approvals and everything else.
I said, we're only going to ask them 3 questions. And at every interview, I would go to every speaker and say, listen, there's no particular script I want from you. You have been involved in Saadiyat in one way or another. You know the vision and the ambition of it. We're going to ask you 3 questions. And all I want is for you to answer from your heart.
Wow.
And that's where the magic came, right? And we know the project inside out. We know these people's involvement and individuals, but sitting and listening to them also talk about it, we were inspired and mesmerized on set, just hearing it, and it's our own project. So imagine us hearing what they were saying. What really gave me goosebumps and really showed that it's easy to set a vision and an ambition, but it's also when you come to execution, and the execution, how do you really stay true to it? And we saw that when we spoke to the people, every one of them, when we were asked, what's really different about Saadiyat and what makes you really excited about it? And as I'm telling you, I'm like, getting goosebumps, is that they said the diversity and the representation within the institutions, that you're giving a platform for everyone to feel represented, is what's really going to make this district different and unique. And again, this came from every person that we interviewed, unscripted.
And that links right back to what you said at the start of this conversation around Abu Dhabi being there for everyone.
Yeah.
This gift, it's really poignant.
Beautiful. And I think what I was saying about the personal aspect is that Saadiyat Culture District also puts an emphasis and focus on art and how art shapes our lives. And so I started to sit and reflect on my own personal journey. And this was, again, really sparked in me from the conversations that we heard from the different people, right? And we heard one artist talk about how a loss of a child inspired him to create, a certain collection of art, but it was a way for him to overcome that phase of his life. And so it got me to stop and think about my personal life and journey. And I shared this in one of our stakeholder sessions in Abu Dhabi, where we had everyone that came in and we were sharing the campaign with them. And I said, I come from a family of 1 of 5 children, and my eldest sister was a special needs sister. And at the time, we didn't have a definition for art, and no one was dictating to us what art is and how you had to have it as part of life. It was, to our parents, it was just something, a part of, similar to how you breathe the oxygen in life, right? And here my mother was using Play-Doh, drawing and art. And needless that we know, it was a form of communication between me and my sister. And I started, I went and I started looking at some of her paintings that I still have today with me. And I say with me because she passed away about 13 years ago. And I found these paintings where she would draw circles. And I was like, really, and curious. All her drawings were circles, 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 circles. And remember looking up online, and don't hold me for this, but they're saying actually when children draw circles, it's a sense of feeling safe, feeling family, feeling loved. And it was only through this project, and I was like, wow, I never knew the power of art and what it meant and how it was always a part of our life. And no one really told my mom that this was, a way to help bridge the communication and link, and even for her to express herself. It just changed the way that I look at art and everything. I think one thing that I'm really wanted to touch on Saadiyat Culture Campaign, and I think one thing that's really, when we were looking at the campaign and the objectives and what we wanted to do, we wanted to make sure that this campaign went mass and it reached every part of the world. And of course, there's always a strategy that as marketeers we go in, is how do we leverage the voices of the influential people.
Yeah.
And while you would have seen the likes of, the well-respected people such as Oprah Winfrey, Idris Elba, Lang Lang, what I'm quite proud of is that the main point that was taken away from the campaign wasn't the individuals and the names, but really the genuine stories that came out of it, right? And it's really what Saadiyat Culture District stood for. And this is where we know that we've done our job and we've really achieved the objectives of what we wanted to set out for. I have such respect for everyone that has come to the table, and they came because they genuinely believed in the mission of the district. And that was, such a great balance, and it's credit to the team that worked on ensuring that we made sure that everything that was in this campaign that was said was genuine, authentic, and real, and that connected with people on a human level. And I think this is what I just wanted to call out to that approach, and really call out to the team for doing such an amazing job to staying true to the essence, and really thanking every single voice and person that came with us on this journey, and taking that leap of faith with us, of being completely raw, genuine, and authentic with us. Because that's really what, when we heard of people from externally talk about the district, they were really moved by the stories, by the emotion, by the purpose, and the diversity of the campaign. And it wasn't fixated on one individual. And when we heard that, we knew that we achieved our objective, that is the message that we wanted. The diversity, but more importantly, driving that sense of curiosity to find out more.
It sounds like an incredibly brave approach throughout, and it's clearly resonated with people regionally and globally. So congratulations on the campaign.
Thank you.
We're going to mix it up now. I'm going to refer to my notes because we've got a bit of a quick fire round. So no time to think, quick answers, and I'm going to fire these at you.
Here we go.
What is your favourite thing about Abu Dhabi?
My favorite thing about Abu Dhabi would have to be its people. Abu Dhabi would not be what it is without the people that make it who it is. The warmth, the hospitality, their attitude of going always over and beyond, no matter who is in front of them. You could be just a regular person working in a coffee shop, to a celebrity, to a mom, a dad. You would be greeted with the same warmth, the same love, the same welcoming spirit, and that's what really makes Abu Dhabi very special.
Wow.
In an alternative universe, if you were doing a different job, what job would you have?
Oh, that's easy. I'd be a teacher. I take a lot of pleasure of seeing people grow, learn, and I wouldn't be any teacher. I would want to be a primary teacher, because that's the stage where you get to influence these beautiful minds and really have an opportunity of making a difference in the world. But I'd definitely be a teacher.
I love that in those formative years, right?
Yes.
Of course, Abu Dhabi is your favourite city. But besides Abu Dhabi, where else do you like to visit? Top 3?
Top three. Orlando will come at the top, just because of, everyone's like, Orlando, the heat, yes, I guess that's similarity of being at home, but the beauty of the I'd say the diversity of the project and the people and the energy. And if I've learned anything from the customer experience, it's from there. I love London. Not because I lived there for 8 years, but because of the beauty of, the cultural aspect there, the museums, the performing arts. A third one. I'd have to say home.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, but I want to say something about being in Abu Dhabi also. I'd want to also spend my holiday in Abu Dhabi.
Okay,
Yes.
so staying on Abu Dhabi then.
Yes.
What is the absolute must visit? One hidden gem that you would recommend everyone to see?
Oh, hidden gem. This is going to be maybe, I don't know if it's expected or unexpected, but it would be definitely Al Ain Oasis. Something about being between all those palm trees, the smell of, the grass, the wood, the dates, in this world of, experiences and all that. I always find that being in nature is the best, most grounding experience. I would say not a lot of people understand the beauty of being between those palm trees, the sound of the birds, the sunlight coming between the palm trees, the sound of the water rippling through. Definitely it would be Al Ain Oasis for me.
Beautiful. That's a lovely end to that section. You actually had me picturing that then as you were talking about it.
I actually really want to know the last one, Matthew.
What's the last one?
I thought we were skipping that.
I want to know.
Okay.
Where to eat.
Yeah, we hear you're a foodie. What is your favourite restaurant in the city?
I'm a big sushi fan, so I'm going to tell you Yamasaki. And why is because of the story behind it. It's a young UAE national girl, sorry, not girl, but lady, who during university years opened up a restaurant inside university, and then went to transforming the restaurant from the university into under the escalators in Delma Mall, now to a prominent restaurant, and now she is on Talabat. I take such great pride in supporting young and upcoming talent, and if you have love for sushi, that's one I would definitely say you have to order from and support, honestly.
We're going. We're absolutely going. I didn't know that story. That's wow.
Awesome.
Okay, we're moving past Sadiat. Okay, so there's literally a couple more questions. So we'll look at
Key point 3, the future now.
Yeah, the future. And I do think, I think we've covered some of this. Okay, so looking ahead, what excites you most in the next 5 years?
Wow. If I'm going to look at least first the next 2 years, which is the Saadiyat Cultural District coming alive, that's really going to be a game changer for Abu Dhabi. Those 5 institutions coming together and the journey of what customers can experience there is going to be really a game changer for Abu Dhabi. So from the cultural standpoint, that product and offering, and it just really completes the traveler's visit to the destination. But the next 5 years, I'm really excited to see how Abu Dhabi becomes one of the top 5 destinations in the world. And that's not something that's just going to happen overnight, because there's really a clear and really diligently developed roadmap for us, where, every single partner entity is coming to make that a realization, where by 2030, I'm going to be so proud to stand next to every one of my partners as we welcome 40 million visitors to the destination. Hearing everyone know and recognize Abu Dhabi and understand what it stands for and how it truly is a city that they can come, build their lives, experience it for all that it has to offer, and be amongst, a place that is safe, a place that is welcoming, and its diversity is what's going to really shine and make it different.
And staying on that future focus, and I think a final question that will really inspire our audience. If you were talking to young men and women who want to get into the industry, what would your one piece of advice be?
You heard me talk about this a couple of times, but I'll never get restricted by the job description. A lot of young people come today in the gym and say, what's my job description? I said, the job description is there to give you a baseline. Never be limited by a job description. Never limit yourself to what you would think or believe that you're capable of. Because if you have the drive to learn and the drive to take a risk or to try something different, the world is your oyster and the opportunities are there for you to grab. But more importantly, I want to leave everyone with this important, I'd say, anecdote to think of, right? And it comes a lot from me reflecting over the last month, is that if you want to learn and grow, you're not going to learn and grow from sailing calm waters. It is through the turbulence and the waves and the storms that you will learn, that you will grow, and then you will find yourself in places that you never knew, but that only comes through going through those storms. So while you're in the storms, while it might seem impossible, know that they're happening for a reason and you're learning something to prepare you for what's next and for where you're meant to be.
I think that's a really inspiring end to what's been a really inspiring conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nouf,
Thank you
for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.